Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Native Wellness Institute Power Hour, but I guess it's always Native Hour, no matter where you're at. So, okay, Nitaniko Aste Nikiwa. Hi, my name is Lori Newbreast, and I am coming to you from the beautiful Blackfeet reservation via Native Wellness Institute Zoom, via their Facebook page. So welcome to everybody, and I hope this day has been good to you so far, or if it's been somehow to you so far. I'm glad that you joined us here at the Native Wellness Power Hour. Pretty soon we are, I think this month is also the month where we mark 3 years since the Power Hour has been conducted. And that really is, going to be a marker in time for everyone at Native Wellness Institute, but also everybody who watched at any point in time. So I just want to be mindful that that's coming up. And then I was also, I like to crack jokes. People who have been around me at any time, even on the Power Hour, So we're going to do some fiddling. Mankind in the US is going to do some fiddling with the clocks, right? And that sets off in a lot of people, animals, the plant, things that go on a natural rhythm, like where their clock is the sun and daylight, darkness, the moon. And so today on the Power Hour, when so much of the wellness journey is different for everybody, but everywhere I go, or I'd say, and everywhere I go now, where there's a wellness event, it's like the use of earth medicines or the sacred medicines that we've been gifted from the earth and taught to use, and those teachings now are, it's kind of like, if one person lights a smudge, really, it goes out to everywhere. Because our eyes can only see particles to a certain, size, but smudge goes out everywhere. And I always think about that in different seasons, like when there are maybe like lightning strike flyers, that there is the medicines are moved up in the smoke, right? But they go around, even though our eyes can't always see them. So today, that was the title, wellness are medicines. And I was going to add it like a comma, you can go crazy with commas, but really to talk about, there is medicine, like, from the Western world, and there's been synthesized, and there will continue to be synthesized earth medicines to where they, are controlled by, or they're part of the pharmaceutical international industry. But there's also another way to look and have relationship with medicines from that are, and that knowledge is with indigenous people and others now that are particularly interested in how we think and how we be, and particularly before colonialism, how, or other great changes, because there have been markers of great changes in all the cultures that are on the earth. So this isn't, I would share with you like kind of like a mini or a circle right now in the Power Hour, because it would be different if we were all in the same room together, right? So if you have a smudge that you light periodically during the day, or I have I've been gifted a lot of things. So actually this This came from Native Wellness Institute, Jolene Joseph and Will, they put together these bags. So sometimes when I have medicines like that at my desk, I inhale them because they also help me. But today that's what I have near me. So in the medicine, or another way I think to say it in English is, if everything is sacred in all of creation, then the sacred plants or holy plants, and they have their internal knowledge and their gifts, like their mission from the Creator, they know that well, merely by living. And like trees also have that. But there's kind of a circle that I wanted to start with you today to talk about. When we're talking about the human being, we're part of creation, and that you can start to envision how there's earth medicines or sacred medicines, spiritual medicines that people use every day, right? You use air in your brain, in your whole body, right? To pray. And when I was learning, this was a way, some of how you relate to things, or how you begin to have your own knowledge circle about the plants that come to be important in your life, or you have privilege to hear about, or the circles that those medicines lead you into. So it was explained to me how the sun governs everything, light and dark, right? Light, whether it's sunlight or moonlight, or the absence of light, governs everything. And then our bodies, or our internal, like human workings, there's 3 components to them, but they can't exist without that light. So that's the first one. And then air, water, and blood. And plants contain, even one plant could contain all 4 of those components, that it could relate to the nighttime, and dark is required for growing from a lot of the medicines. But it also shows it needs light. So it needs the light to change. And right now on the earth, and where our medicines grow on the land, or in the waters, or wherever you get them, there is a need to understand that darkness is equally as important to balance. And when we as human beings, one of our medicines that we receive, like in dreams, our instructions, spiritual dreams, even everyday dreams, even your spirit is helping you process that night through dreams, maybe your living day. We need light. We need darkness. But you also need a light, like if you're going to the toilet during the night, not to, that shoe you left in the middle of the hallway. So light has a function to help us navigate, not just in the world, but also in the understanding of when you have interest in medicines. And there was common knowledge, if you want to say, knowledge among a lot of people about medicines. Like you can find in the historical record where some of the scurvied visitors came, if you want to call them colonizers, explorers came, and where small children already knew how to help them, how to treat their skin condition. And that's among many nations. You'll hear them say they use this, but then put another name on it and understand only one function. And then there's many plants that have their function. They're one plant, but they're so intricate and so complex that they could have many, many, many cultural meanings to different people, because that's their original relationship to that plant. And when we share teachings cross-tribally or intertribally, we could share about one plant and it would have multiple functions. So there is a complexity, but also a connection of that complexity if we look at the earth. And so if we remember those things, light, dark, air, water, and blood, what feeds are, if you want to say like your endocrine system or your brain, your hormones. You know, people, sometimes hormones get a bad rap, you know, but they can tell you a lot of things. And some plants or parts of plants are specific to those. It's specific to that and the way that you form relationship and you go out and you seek it. And again, one plant could have many names and the different parts of it, you know, from the soil that, like, if you need a certain type of soil for, you know, your purposes, one plant can tell you you're in the correct place. So it can be like a navigator. It has many functions, but in and of itself, it has many uses and many different knowledge systems in one plant. So when you see the diversity of, let's say, like a plant, like, I'm just going to give an example, like bearberry or kinnicknick or kakatsan, depending on how you are in the Confederacy, the one I belong to. That plant in and of itself is diverse. Like, it has functions that can relate to water, to blood, and those in turn can help with air. And really, if I don't like to sometimes draw comparisons, because that binary way of thinking is also, that's a process that we've been taught. But to think in a circle is often where we can find great comfort. So one plant that can help restore somebody to that whole being, which is a circle being, you know, we're not separate. You know, my brain doesn't exist outside my body unless, you know, they start fiddling with me somehow scientifically, or, you know, I'm beamed up by the aliens, but I don't think they do that to me. I don't know why, you know, kind of like, but so when you're in those thinking about them, your head can get too big and then it start getting wobbly, you know, you can't move around, you know, you get on balance. So there's a little, like a thing I do when I, like, let's say I went to somebody else's traditional homeland and I have a day to walk out, you know, or a day to enjoy some site or some plant that I seen, and for some reason it attracted to me. Or attracted, you know, I had to find out what it was. Often that happens to me, and I'm open to, I just trust somewhere along the way, I'll meet a person and they'll tell me about it, you know, because that's their homeland. And so to walk out among the plants, the earth medicines where they live, and in that I include rocks, anything that exists, you know, on the earth, basically, the whole earth. They know what they're supposed to do. They have a function. They have a knowledge base. but also that's how you begin to be known to them. And let's say today you've seen the title and you know, for whatever reason you came on the Power Hour, and it's really about the willingness to form relationship now. You know, like hundreds of years ago, our ancestors, they had a different, right? They were living in a different, you know, space-time continuum, you know. Right now, we have a lot of, it seems like we have options, but there is a clear course for Indigenous people and each Indigenous person. And sometimes we need help. We need the clarity of vision. We need the clarity of maybe mind, body, spirit, and our relationship to other, you know, other human beings, or maybe the world we live in. And there are also those plants that guide. And so it's just like if we all sat down and instead of being cyberly connected, I don't know how big our circle would be, but I'm imagining, you know, tens of thousands of people sitting in a circle. There would be different purposes for each of us. So when we collectively come together and bring all our gifts, including our mind, body, spirit, and emotions, in one intention, you're bringing all those medicines. So there are guiding in the same way. That's the same way plants, or you know, they form relationships and they have guides. And sometimes people call those, they give them English words, but really that's what they are. They're guides. And all the other, so they function. So the like, if you might see, I see a lot of teas now, like they'll pick 2 scents and or 2 plants, and they come together and they'll do what they're supposed to, right? So that's one way, like a common tea, like if you're gonna, you know, drink with your meal, and food is also medicine, right? Because it has that those qualities in it, right? Just like whatever your food comes from, even if you're like one of those really hardcore vegans, like your food comes from somewhere, and it has to have those properties. You know, you could think of so in today on the Power Hour, you know, you think of that circle: air, water, blood, light, dark, spirit, mind, body, and emotions. Those are all circles that are coming together, and they all have a purpose, and there's also knowledge bases in all of them. So for them to come together and you form relationships, like for humans, you know, because I'm not a plant. Maybe I was, or maybe I will be, but I'm not a plant. As you can see, I'm not a, you know, person. And so as a person wants to have that knowledge and form relationships, they do it within that continuum of all those different circles, because it's really just one circle. And if you keep building circles around, you know, so there's many cultures that have a symbol for time, and some of them have shared symbols, but it's kind of like those. It's like, you know, you have circles within circles, but really that's kind of like, if your desire, or you are already knowledgeable and you've already been gifted, you know, specific instructions, and you know, you've had teachers, and then suddenly maybe you meet a person that is very much like you, but they're from another culture, and they were given specific instructions in relationship, or how to think of our medicines. is we're all right. Because we cannot put a limitation on the creation of plant medicine or earth medicines. Because for the very obvious reason, we are not the creator. And the complexity of those worlds, they're just as complex as ours. And but how we form relationships, some people may have heard this, like if they've been around me, and so there's like common knowledge, but I like to give the example of where we're at now with pistakan, with tobacco, asema, tabacu, which is the first word that the Europeans heard for that plant, from the Taino people in the Caribbean. That's the origin of the commercial word tobacco. It's from an indigenous word. So right now, that is, if we don't think about what what has been done to the commercial chemicalization of an indigenous medicine, and we think about, we kind of clear our vision, that's an agreement that was made far beyond any of our lifetimes between that plant and humans. But not all humans had that as their practice. And they also knew about it, but their culture had been given other instructions, or where they lived. Because just now, like, not saying that Amazon is indigenous thinking, jokes, but how, you can get a package like in Barrow, Alaska, or Nunavut, the indigenous province in Canada, and you may be able to get that same Amazon package in Christchurch, New Zealand, right? That's how the web has spun around the earth, right? And so it isn't that we didn't know about each other, or we were discovering other indigenous people, beginning in 1492. If we start looking at the origin of knowledge, particularly around tobacco, it was well known, but it wasn't used like today. So traditional tobacco had a role, and from the plant world, or the plant nations came, and that plant began to form. We formed relationship with us, but there was also the tobacco forming relationship with us to help us to live better. And that was the purpose. That was the purpose of a human conjoining with that plant. But it's also so it has many functions, more functions than we have to just discuss in the Power Hour. And I always received like this teaching, is that you remain teachable your whole life. And then when we make our transition, we got a new learning. Learning is not finite. Because what I seen when I was 8 is different than what I see now. But it also includes what I seen when I was 8. So we're like, we have our own dynamic, like inner universe, outer universe through relationships. But also tobacco can be a guide. It's a guider. And so in wellness, there are many times where, what had been working for you and it wasn't working in a good way for you, and you're making decisions, and maybe you're not in a circle. You're a circle of one of wellness, even if you're by yourself, right? And so during the pandemic, with a lot of people, including myself, I was a circle of one. had to, maintain. And so tobacco is also one of those guides where try your best to use indigenous tobacco because it is resurging, and we have to demonstrate that we're going to uphold the original relationships. But I also recognize that the compassion and love that tobacco has for indigenous people, that we must understand that good people, what they have available to their communities now and for themselves is the purchase tobacco. But try your best to start joining on that road with people, because there's a lot of people. It's getting kind of crowded, which is good. Not like a zombie horde or anything, a tobacco horde, kind of, but we're all joining. We're coming to those points. But in my own wellness, when I, at a similar time where we're at, where our young people are showing signs, outward signs, help me. Or if you are a young person listening to this, you can ask for help. You don't need like people in between you. And one of the tools is, that's part of tobacco's function. It can guide you through an offering. And it doesn't mean, it could be in many different forms. So that's like a guider. And in points of decision in my life, when I was fully grown, tax paying, all that kind of stuff, I came to professional, what people would call professional, although, my career is being a Piikani. That's my whole career, being a Piikani. And I would be at points of places, maybe there were no other, what I seen or could see, indigenous people around, or I was by myself in very crowded cities, and I needed help. And I put down that offering, and help came. You got to remain open, right? You got to go, your air, water, blood, the acknowledgement of, the outer agreements, light, dark, but all those interior ones that sometimes we talk about in wellness, the spirit, mind, body, and the emotions, those have to be a little willing. So, maybe that could, I won't put limitations on what you need to ask for your wellness or for your well-being or in this moment, and maybe even in gratitude, because there's also ways to use that particular medicine to show gratitude, to show the ancestors, I'm giving this to you because I'm giving thanks that you made sure I'm living today, that I'm taking a breath. So there's many ways that you can use that particular earth medicine that's been gifted to us. And it also helps form relationships. It's often used, but it's not the only one, to form relationships with the natural world, to form relationships with people, maybe to form relationship with yourself. Maybe you've decided that you're going to commit and you're going to you're always going to carry your tobacco with you. And often when I travel or I go places, even when I travel in our own homeland, I have it. And when I pass a place or I am walking on a place that has significance, or all of it has significance, but I knew that there occurred something that maybe, our ancestors they were unable, because of what was done to them, to have somebody send them in a good way or honor their passing. Or maybe it's a piece of sacred it's a place where some magical, fantastical thing happened for our people. And it's in private ownership. If I'm near enough, I always count on the wind, the air, the earth, right? The wind to help me out. So the elements are also medicines. There is, now you can like look on, like there's this app, like, not that we're all where I live obsessed about weather, but you got to keep your eye out, because you can't be, tiptoeing through the tulips right now. Well, there's only plastic tulips right now growing in Montana. So the forever flower, the plastic flower. But really there is to understand too, that the elements, rain, snow, cold, hot, wind, all of those play a part in medicine to affect your spirit, mind, body, and your emotions. And just like a plant that needs the darkness to grow, we need that also to grow. We need those periods where we're not negotiating creation with our eyes open. We're at rest. Because that's also where dreams are medicine. And if you, because of life experience, or maybe, maybe no one's ever asked you, what did you dream last night? Did you dream last night? If you intentionally make a commitment to begin to remember your dreams and have those people, it's common in the family I grew up to talk about your dreams. It's common in all our cultures. And I've been privileged in my life to meet those people that their gift, their medicine that they help people with is with dreams. But circumstances and journeys that were not so well and experiences can put you in a space where you may even tell other people, oh, I never dream. It's just that you have to focus. It's like, again, that complexity where there's your life path, indigenous circle that you're in, but there's all these other things diving into your circle all the time. And taking your, maybe taking your sight away or diverting it, and you got to clear it out. So if you want to remember your dreams, and even if they're about, I don't know, jelly beans, like, I don't know. I mean, I'll confess, like if I see something on the menu, I'll try it. So I had this thing, I won't even talk about, but it mixes a lot of ingredients that I don't think it only appeals to certain people, but it's associated with Elvis Presley. So to intentionally, so I might have a dream about that later on when when I'm far away from that restaurant. It may appear in my dream. But it's fascinating because although we're resting and restoring our physical body, there is a whole other consciousness and gifts that open up to us through what would be called medicines. And those are the dreams that in many circles I've sat in, and the prayer has been for somebody to be gifted a solution or a way to help other people. And they're not talking about Amazon delivering the package. They're talking about a connection to the spiritual connections that we all exist in, whether or not we acknowledge them. And dreams are part of rest, restoring, but also of guiding even you as an individual. And sometimes the greatest, in moments of like, we're now in the post-pandemic, even Americans like are saying grief. They want to make money off it, but grief didn't start post-pandemic. It's part of the human experience. Because if you love, you grieve. That's part of the package, right? But you could receive great comfort and nurturance when you dream about a person you love. And it becomes your own knowledge system and reassurance. And it's also those moments when you're open to receiving the medicine through dreams, that if you're asking for help, that's how it may come. And so there's a whole world when you start thinking about, air, water, blood, light, dark, spirit, mind, body, emotions. And then that leads you to relationships. And then it's kind of like the thing everybody goes after right now. It's all about stay in balance, be in balance, wear even balanced shoes, kind of thing. You have the capabilities, just as you are, to have all of those things. But there may be things that you do need from other people. You will need at some point in your life. You need every day from other people. And those are where you start. Don't set aside that there are medicines. Sometimes people, right, even in English, they'll say like somebody who's been given a gift, medicine people. Usually this is the International Day of the Woman. We only get like 24 hours, so I'm gonna like take privilege here. There are medicine women too. Medicine two-spirited people, medicine non-binary, they just haven't made up their mind that the gender that's not talked about is the one they fit into. But anyway, so women only get one day. Oh, just all stingy with their days. So when you move all of those things, air, water, blood, light, dark, spirit, mind, body, emotions, and you're moving them towards balance, and then you got human relationships, maybe you don't know that your family was in charge of, they were the ones that went out and formed for everybody that first relationship to a plant, to a place, to an action. But you're rediscovering that by being open to those things, to going on the land, to going among safe circles, where it's safe to start talking about these things and to sharing and really supporting in a good way with the other relatives, supporting the use of, I always talk about ethics, but our way of life was ethical. And so those are tools to help you keep balance and to think beyond being a human being in relationship. And then, so today that, it's like complex. So like it's swirling around in my head because we got this hour. But I also wanted to talk about each of those things, about how in your body you have the right, not only the right, like, a lot of people talk about sovereignty, and there's an organization called Sovereign Bodies, but you are sovereign, to use that English word. You come delivered from the Creator with the right to be, that nobody can grant you those rights. You have that right to be. And in medicines, it's not that, or it's like thinking about them, but thinking about air as a medicine, right? You got two lungs. Mainly, some people over their life, maybe they'll have injury, or for a lot of our people, like including my father, he had tuberculosis. So back then they used to go in there and cut out part of your lung, like for the But if you have the ability to breathe, that's life. And so in that air, right now, we need to pay attention to that air, because it can tell you, it can clue you into a lot of things. But I was with these great group. Well, I felt pretty lucky, like before my recent travels, I was at a basketball game, so I was with all these people with great air. But I was with a group, they had great air, they had good energy. And then I was with another group, and then I met a lot of nice people that what came out of their mouth in language was good air. So sometimes that's what I think of, like of language. I think of it as air. But your air can get clogged when maybe somebody hasn't treated you well, or maybe you participated in not treating yourself well because you were taught that way, right? So you become conscious of how your air helps you. And it's really easy to do, like, like keep your shoulders down, right? Don't tighten up your back, but you kind of, because you're giving your lungs, right? You're giving them their best environment. And then to keep your head kind of, not tilted forward, but over your spine. And then to breathe in, right? And we all know, right? That's what their nose hairs are, is your filter, right? So if you breathe in, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, you're like, and then you let it out. You are already helping yourself increase your good air. But also there are places where, like, like at the beginning, I said, I had this cedar. And so sometimes, I can't like light a sponge, but I smell. And that's one of cedar's properties, is to clarify the air. And not just like, air freshener, which that's another show, that's another organization. But to clarify the air, so your spirit, mind, and body and emotions, the air that's going in there and informing all of your mechanisms gets help. It gets cleared. Or there's other beautiful, what Indian don't have Vicks? Or now there's young people, right? They're going and they're getting the medicines, and they're starting to make their own version of, not Vicks, they're making their own memory of things to help clear your nasal passages and restore you to health, right? But they're addressing the need that sometimes we need to clear out our air, maybe for, maybe our spirit needs it, maybe our emotions need it. So that's something you can do. You can create your own little happy bag. Go around and the things that you like to smell. And then that's something you can always, and now with the mask, we're kind of like, I'm not wearing my mask anymore. But masking was always part of cultures. But that, who says you can't like tuck it, if we go back to that? Or maybe you just need a break from other people's smells, and you put it in your mask on and you put your little sachet in there. But also if you're worrying, or you're really happy and you're like, I'm going to make my happy bag. And every time I feel happy, I'm going to like, often plants, this is also my experience, I would say, the person who forms a relationship and carries that plant in their life, or has it in their home, sometimes that's the same person that has went out and gathered it, but sometimes it's not, because there are also individuals or groups of people that they are responsible for gathering because they can smell. And that's just the difference in a human being. You could even be in the same family. Or sometime if your crawl out is you want to learn in a good way to be a good relative to the plant medicines or to everybody, and you need help. A scent will follow you around and it will lead you to a teaching. And if I could say, I can verify that. And I've also, in other activities, you can also meet a plant and maybe nobody else notices it, but you go to 5 different places in one season and you see that plant. That plant is acknowledging you by helping you look at it. And often the identification comes with smell. So air is incredibly important to your balance, to the earth's balance. And maybe you're just you're the person who goes out and gathers, and then you give it to that person that helps other people in other ways. But the importance of smell is critical in that. And you all got that one cousin or that one sibling or that one relative or maybe that one parent that smells their food. Because all our noses are just like, although you can come from the same parents, the way you're put together, there are variations that can't be explained, all of them. But smell is incredibly important to learning about the natural world. But also it's the gift of the natural world that it can change us if we carry a plant that has been gathered, in a good way, and that it is going to be leading us and helping you. So in air, it's important like that you help also. And so in wellness, like where you can get stuck, a lot of people, this is one of the places trauma or healing informed is that you can get your throat unstuck. Trauma is you just talk about the location of where it can go. But this area right here, in a lot of people at some time or another, when they're dealing with their healing journey, needs help to get unclogged, even to speak. And there are ways to use air to relax this part. And then there are sometimes that to move beyond or through your healing journey, you don't necessarily need to name through language. You just need to let it out. And that's where your mind can help you. Even to remember that, like in this moment, I hope you're in a really good place. But you can become in a really good place inside of you, no matter where you're at, through the use of air. Through remembering to breathe, let your lungs extend your stomach, because the lungs go down to respirate. They don't go out here. Otherwise, we'd all, kind of look like a prairie chicken, right? We'd all look at like those big breasted fryers you could buy on sale, right? Our lungs need to go down. And that means that your tummy must respirate like a baby, animals when they're not under distress. And so in a moment, any moment, if you're having a memory that doesn't, it's somehow and you want to get rid of it, or right now you're somehow and you want to change how you interact with the next person, which may be yourself. Maybe your self-talk's getting out of control. You can do that through breath, because air is medicine. And your ability to breathe, basically, that's it. That's the sign of when you're going to make your transition, when you can no longer breathe. You're no longer igniting our vessel that we've been given. And the one, sometimes, people, who doesn't like to be warm? We have to be warm, we're not invincible. And, we're not the big person that can roam through dimensions and stuff, regardless of what you call them. We're not that person. So we are sensitive to the elements. And so I'd like you to think about, when you're hearing some of the predictions of what are going to change, that's snow is water, ice is water, and then there's the flowing, that is water in the oceans. And the fact that that exists in all those various forms, or vapors or humidity, that's water too. That also is a part where you can understand that you do need water, not because someone's told you drink glasses of water or certain ounces. And for some of the younger people on here, I was born before you had to buy water in stores. But I was taught by somebody who predicted that, and who always encouraged me when I'm going to a different place to smell my water before I put it in my body. And if I have no other choice, I drink it. But also there are ways now that, if you have the means, you can have a water bottle that has a filter on it to take out some of those smells that, aren't that good. It's just like water, right? And I met last week a young person who was very strong and very fit and very tall and very big. And they were kind of like carrying around their 3-gallon water jug from their house, because that's the water they like to drink. So they were packing it around just like it was a feather, because they were like so big and strong. But to be conscious that water, we need it. But it also has many functions. So I worked with a group of young people a couple decades ago, when some of them were really, to get to sleep was a challenge for them. And so we had a person, a Stolo person come from, sorry, there's something kind of weird on my phone. It's that if I say her name, she's like one of those things that you conjure up, she'll start. It was a mechanism on my phone. Trying to figure out what I was saying. But water can also help you calm environments. So like getting to sleep, to have water, a glass of water, clear water, or maybe a water that has, some people call them tea, but also a water, a smell coming from a water. But just water can help calm environments and help you sleep. And then I wanted to talk about, there's not enough time, and I feel like I'm not at the end of my knowing about this, but with us here today with the Power Hour, our bodies, the quality of our blood determines a lot of things. And even you could be you could have the packed full digital calendar, but you were too tired to achieve it. And that is also, there's conditions where air, water, and blood, when they work, they're working together to keep you alive. But you also have to use your brain when you notice some of those aren't working. And rest is important for everything to work well. and sometimes, food, but also movement, to use your body for, one time I had a movement teacher and he said, we're all just a bunch of hinges, and I thought, well, yeah, he's kind of right, but just even help your blood right now on the power hour, stick your arms up, drop your shoulders, move your body in the way it is, rotate your feet if you can right now, or during the day, stretch before you get out of bed. Prepare yourself, use your body, twist to the left, twist to the right. You don't have to be like a gymnast, or just range of motion on your hands, on your fingers, your shoulders flex, back, forward, back. Move your head around, because that is helping the blood to make sure that it's balanced in your body to help you. And so when I thought, sharing today, and, really like having gratitude that the Native Wellness is dedicated, it's dedicated to the teachings of our ancestors. And now I see a phrase going around, how to be a good ancestor. And there's a lot in that like phrase, but so, I kind of read that before I came on here, and I was like, to strive to live in a good way, that's a good way. And that's how you will be remembered, or that's how, giving space for your gifts to be shared. And everybody is gifted. There's just sometimes a lot of stuff that gets in the way of you embracing that about yourself. You're gifted. That's how it goes. You're born Indigenous, you're gifted. And not that other people aren't, right? But I'm talking right here on the Native Wellness Institute Power Hour about what it's like to navigate the world now as an Indigenous person. And on International Women's Day I don't know. Sometimes, I'm like, when people start describing what a woman is, I'm like, is that the only choices? Seem limited. Anyway, there's medicines for that too, right? That help you calm down, that help you not get stuck in the anger rut, and there's a lot to be angry about. Don't get me wrong, but that's just one emotion. So often the blood also tells us that there is movement, men and women, over their course of their life, their body, their endocrine systems, their hormones, change. And the blood tells you a lot about how the inner workings are. And you can help that also. But you must have air and water and movement for all of those. Even if your ability to move is this, or you're in a space where you don't want your coworkers to know that you're wiggling your toes right now in your shoes, uphold your part of life, that you use all of those parts in a good way. So this is just like not even an introduction. This is a conversation that I hope to have with all of you in person again here. Maybe, other people are inspired to share in our team, or you in the chat. You can say what your medicine journey has been. Because if I know nothing else, I know if we're drawing breath right now, this is the time where we honor the power of story, and we tell our story. And the best, the most authentic, the most spirit-driven story about you comes from you. And that really is our part that we should celebrate now in this generation. We all have a story. We all have a spirit-driven story that we're living. And to be the best person, the living ancestor now, if you want to say, but the living person. Be your best person to yourself, to however you define your family, and however you define your community or communities. That's the time we're living in. And that's a real cause for celebration. And I just like to know, like I feel in so many moments, the medicines are going to celebrate with us too, because they're cheering us on. They have our backs. And that's all of them. And so thank you for joining the Power Hour today. And next Wednesday, another person from the team or our networks of guests will be on here. So I wish you well. I wish you, a good day and a good sleep. And thank you for joining.